I have made the decision to actually not do our work from the stage today because I don't want to be separate from you all. Part of vulnerability, part of connection is our equality. So I'm going to start with a quick story that had a really profound impact on me about 10 years ago. It's a film that I saw. It was a short film displayed at the Cannes Film Festival, and it opened on a park, a town square, if you will, in some foreign country. And can you actually throw on, Josh, my presentation slides? And in this park, we see a big fountain in the middle of the park, and we see a little girl with a balloon running through a flock of pigeons, and parents pushing their stroller around the park, a squirrel eating a nut. Beautiful kind of family scene. And then the camera pans over, and we see this older gentleman who's leaning up against this short wall. His clothes are scruffy, dirty. He's got really old Converse sneakers on. And the camera continues to pan, and we see this sign, which reads, "Have compassion, I am blind." And as people walk by and see this old man, occasionally somebody drops a coin or something into his little tin can that's in front of the sign. But for the most part, people pass him by and continue on with their day. Well, eventually, this younger man, dressed in full suit, looking sharp, carrying a briefcase, nice pair of shoes on, is walking through the park, stops in front of the old blind man, surveys the scene for a moment. Meanwhile, the old blind man reaches his hands out and touches the shoes of the young man, his way of getting to know who's standing in front of him. And eventually the young man picks up the sign, turns it around, pulls out a pen, and writes something else on the other side of the sign. And then places it back down, pats the old blind man on the shoulder, and walks away. For the rest of that afternoon, his tin can is ringing like a Vegas slot machine. Everybody who passes by is dropping bills, and they're dropping coins, so much so that he's scrambling and feeling around, filling his pockets. There's all this overflow. And meanwhile, everyone who's dropping coins and bills, they have this vibrancy about them, this joy about them as they are giving to him. Well, after a while, the younger man finishes whatever business that he was doing, comes back, steps in front of the old blind man again, who again reaches his hands out to see who's in front of him and touches the younger man's shoes. And then asks him the question, "What did you do to my sign?" To which the young man replies, "I said the same thing, but with different words." And the camera pans over, and what once said, "Have compassion, I am blind," now said, "Today is a beautiful day, and I cannot see it." So many of us are moving through life like him. Desperate to connect, wanting to be seen for who we are in a way that the world can truly experience us. But sometimes the way in which we express ourselves does not allow the world to see the beauty that we have within. There are so many brilliant ideas that you're going to hear over the next 2 days about things that we have to do in this world. They will be done through relationship and through how we care about one another and how we support and help one another. This 50 minutes that we will be spending together today will be about how do we create that space so that we can do our most profound and stunning work together. So we're going to do a 1-minute exercise, super quick, really informal. I want you to turn to someone next to you and just ask the question, how are you doing? We're going to do that to just take a baseline of where we're starting from. If you can hear my voice, please raise your hand. I'm going to ask for 3 agreements from you as we enter this space together because connection has certain requirements that we need to adhere to. The first that I'm going to ask for is your presence. I believe presence is the absolute greatest gift that we can give to one another, to be with each other. There are so many distractions that are vying for our attention every day. Certainly, we all have that attachment to our phone that is constantly letting us know it needs us. It's desperate for us. I encourage you not to just set your phone on silent, but if you're somebody who's not being relied on for life or breath in the next 45 minutes, what would it look like if you turned it off and were just with each other in this room? Give that some consideration. To whatever degree you are comfortable and able, I'm going to ask that you agree to being present with one another. Can we say, I agree?
I agree.
Thank you. Beautiful. The other thing I'm going to ask, and this is a reminder for me too, is that we slow down. Outside of this room, How fast is this conference going? Talk about the world. How fast is it just going through the Marriott? My goodness. And as soon as you guys kind of, get dismissed out of this space and run into the next thing, things are going to be at hyperspeed. So our goal is going to be to spend this time slowing down so that we can be present with one another. Can we say, I agree? I agree. Thank you. The last request is that we honor that we are all human beings in this space. That means we come with stuff. Some people have a sick child at home or a sick parent in the hospital. Some people have financial stress that they're dealing with. Or maybe your relationship with a loved one or a spouse is tumultuous right now. Before we are here trying to change the world as leaders, we're human beings who have life to contend with. So I ask that you actually take a moment, look around the room at the people who have chosen that this is their tribe because they believe that relationships and connection are a priority. Look at each other, and let's agree to honor that first we are all the same and that we are human beings. Can we say, I agree? I agree. Thank you. Okay. Throughout my entire life, I was an actor in Los Angeles for 10 years. It's a fun other story. My breath was my connection to my body. As an actor, your body is your instrument, it is your tool. Our connection to our breath is our connection to ourself. I cannot connect with you if I'm not connected to me, right? So I ask that we pay attention to our breath throughout this session. And it doesn't just come from my acting background. I'm part of the Stagen Leadership Academy, where I'm a group of 20 CEOs in a class studying for a full year long. People running multi-million and multi-billion-dollar organizations. We get together in Dallas 4 times a year, and every 2 weeks we're on the phone as a teleclass. Every session begins with what they call recalibration, which is 2 feet on the ground, deep breath in. And let's get centered as we enter this space together. I'm also part of a Gestalt therapy training program, which my experience of is about how do we hold space for people that we care about. And every time I go to Cleveland every 2 months for 4 days for an immersive session there, every session, every morning begins with breathing. So notice your breath, notice where it is in your body right now. And as a community, I'm going to ask that we take 2 nice deep breaths together before we enter what's coming next. And we'll do an inhale and an exhale. I encourage you, take a moment, make sure both feet are on the ground. Kind of sitting up straight, maybe feel that string coming out of your head that's lifting you up into the air. Really nice, positive posture. And we'll take 1 more deep breath in. And we will let it out. If at any point during this session you feel triggered, or you feel uncomfortable, or you feel really comfortable and overjoyed, joy is as challenging an emotion for us as pain is. At any point, if you feel disconnected, I encourage you, come back to your breath. I'm going to ask you guys a question, and I'd like for you to, you're fine, thank you. I want you to throw out some adjectives, some words to me that describe how you hope that people you interact with throughout these next 2 days, if they were to walk away and be asked about you, what words do you hope that they would use to describe how they experienced you? You can just shout them out. Resourceful. Wow, I love that. Refreshing, awesome. Energetic, louder. Woo!
Engaging. Memorable. Inspiring. Disruptive. Servant. Joyous. Pleasant. Capable.
Awesome. Thank you. And I know we could go on and on. Who said that? Love it. So as we look at this list, which maybe from a distance you can't see, so remarkable, resourceful, happy, inspired, wow, refreshing, handsome, energetic, unforgettable, optimistic, disruptive, servant, joyous, genuine, open, capable. How many of those words might you also use if I was to ask you the question, how do you hope your life partner in the world might describe you. Isn't that curious? Now what's interesting is we know the path to how to find a life partner, at least to some extent. We know that there is kind of a social norm about how you go about that. So maybe if we explore that, it can illuminate for us quickly and easily how we might use our time together in this space. So initially, and I'm going to go through a very general process, but initially what we do when we are looking for someone in the world, right, we catch eyes somehow, right? We see someone across the room or at a coffee shop or at work. Something happens where something, there's this intangible click that goes on. And sometimes we call that flirting, right? The initial stage. Well, if the flirting is kind of paying off and we're feeling good and it's fun and whatever, in whatever way that is somehow lighting us up, well, then we're typically willing to take the next step. And maybe that's a cup of coffee, right? It's still not too committal. We're going to get into the space. We're going to get to know a little bit more about each other. And if, in my experience with you, as we're sharing this cup of coffee, I like myself more, I feel good about who I am by spending time with you, then you know what? Maybe we'll go to dinner. Now, dinner's that real opportunity. You got to start showing up at dinner, right? You got to start taking that opportunity to show a bit more of your depth. What's the lens through which you view the world? And if that's exciting, and if we get to the end of that dinner date and I'm doing that, what do I do now? This is going pretty good, right? Maybe we get into the dating cycle. Every step here that we take requires more risk. It requires that we show more of ourselves, or someone's going to bounce, right? If we go to coffee and all you do is talk about how awesome you are, congratulations on being awesome, but we're not going to dinner. Right? We have to have reciprocated energy and excitement. Well, if all this is really flowing and dating is going really well, eventually the big opportunity, I call it the big night. You get it. And that's a massive opportunity. It is either going to cause us to want to sneak out at 3 a.m. and never call that person again because the magic just wasn't there, or it's going to rock our world. What'd you say?
More coffee.
Or we go back to coffee. That's great. Thank you. But what's required for the magic to show up is an expression of mystery, intrigue, passion, fire, fear, vulnerability. All of the things that are required to make us wake up in the morning and have a, oh shit, what do I do now moment. I wasn't planning for this, but here's where my life suddenly seems like it's going. That's a fascinating space to get to, because after that comes commitment. If it plays out, we get into the committed relationship, and that is where the work really starts. But it's also where the payoff is really huge. So the question becomes, how many of us are getting trapped in flirting through dating and then having a lot of one-night stands in our life, so to speak? And how many of us are taking the risk to expose ourselves so this is possible? I've been studying this for 10 years through the work that I do at my company. We work with CEOs and thought leaders to tell a new story that helps them reinvent themselves in the world, tell a new story to live into. And through that work, I've discovered that there are 2 ingredients that are necessary to help expedite or even skip all this game playing that we tend to do and get trapped in, so we can get to this emotional intimacy more quickly. And the first one is, we're responsible for extending invitations to one another. That's our decision to make. I can remain closed off as I move through this conference, or I can approach you and be open and be present with you as an individual and as a human being, and extend an invitation to be seen, knowing that you may not like what you see. And can that be okay? We're in charge of how we extend invitations. We're going to explore that as a group coming up. The other thing that we're responsible for is how we hold space for ourselves and for other people. That is a decision, an intentional decision we get to make or not make. Because when we hold space, we allow ourselves to be seen, and we allow ourselves to see the other person. But that does require that we create safety between us. If I pull out my phone during our conversation and I'm checking my Facebook status or a text or this or that, how safe do I feel to you? Right? If in the middle of our conversation I keep looking over your shoulder because maybe there's a better conversation, I'm kind of wondering if it's there, how safe do I feel to you? Right? If you hear me judge somebody else, what's your expectation of how I will receive you? If you see me have the option to judge someone else, but instead receive that moment in grace and with love and kindness, how might you anticipate I might receive you? These are intentions that we have the opportunity to make decisions around. Okay, so this is the part of the program where I honor that I can't stand up here and talk about vulnerability without actually showing a piece of myself to you. That's just an intellectual head game. So I'm going to take 2 minutes and share a story with you that I have to take a sip of water before I share because I don't know how you will receive it. I have a lot of embarrassment around it. And this is an interesting audience for me because I'm one of a few white folks in the room. It just is. So about I don't know, 7, 8 months ago, my wife and I were coming back from a vacation. And we got onto a plane. We had been traveling for 6 or 7 hours already, had a layover that was longer than expected. We're on a plane, kind of tired and doing that cranky thing. And one of the last people to board the plane is a black woman. And there's no overhead space. Of course, last people on the plane, you're always out of luck. So the stewardess, white stewardess, lets her know, we're going to need to check your bag. Well, there's a lot of things that have to happen, and so time goes on. And a good 4 or 5 minutes, she really tries to get her bag in an overhead storage bin. And eventually, it's just not happening. So the stewardess comes over and says, ma'am, you have to check your bag. So reluctantly, she gives her bag over, and she sits right behind us. And my wife and I overhear her say to the person next to her, the last time this happened, they lost my bag. She hits her call button. White stewardess comes over. Woman behind me says, I need your name. And I go, oh shit. You're not going to get what you want right now. And I just felt that tone, and I looked at that white stewardess, and you know what she did? She turned around and she walked away. And then she came back with 2 other white stewardesses. The head white stewardess said, do we have a problem? And the black woman said, I need the name of the woman who took my bag. And she said, and the white stewardess' response was, do we need to turn the plane around? Because we've been taxiing to the runway. Do we need to turn the plane around so you can get off? So I had a choice here, because I had a piece of information they did not have. They were obviously not providing any kind of customer service. They viewed her as a problem. And I had a decision of what to do. And I'm really embarrassed to tell you, my choice was, I turned up my music. And I share that story, and I've reflected on that frequently since, because I've been very disappointed in myself that I let down a fellow human being. And the reality is, I might have spoken up and said something, and she might have told me, I don't need your help, you can sit down and shut up, white guy. Or the stewardess could have said, you can get off the plane too. Like, it was not a simple, easy to address issue. But I certainly could have said, would you like some support? Because I think I can help slow this down and we can get you what you want and yada yada. And I didn't do that. And I try to tell that story frequently, and I try to reflect on that frequently so that it's constantly in my awareness, so that when the opportunity shows up again for me to support another human being, I do a better job. So thank you for receiving that. I really appreciated being able to share that in this space. I think what I experienced is far too typical, and the awareness and the willingness to have the conversation is an important part of the change. So thank you for honoring me. Thank you. That's really kind. Thank you. Okay, so now we're going to shift. You've heard a story. I want you to consider now think back to your how are you doing interaction, right? Where's your energy now? Ask yourself the internal question. Where's your breathing now? How's your butt feel in the chair, right? Where's your energy? Where's the temperature in your body? Right now, my hands are cold, right? But I feel a brightness in my face because I felt love come from this room as I shared, right? I want you to ask of yourself, and I want you to turn to that person that you had the conversation with where you asked, how are you doing? And I want you to ask a different question. And while it's a little awkward question, go with me. How are you being? And I encourage you, if you're asking that question, I encourage you to just listen, not to crosstalk, not to validate or invalidate, just to listen. And then if you're the person who's sharing how you're being, I encourage you to reflect from that heart-soul space rather than intellectually making sense of how to answer that question. We're going to take 2 minutes. I'll give you a little bit more time, and I'll actually let you know when it's time to switch. If you can hear my voice, please raise your hand. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Who can highlight what your experience was in terms of the difference of a kind of informal, how are you doing, versus this new question of how are you being? Yes, ma'am.
Oh, well, I found out, like, what she had plans to get out of actually coming here.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. How did that strike you? How did that make you feel?
I felt like we could get a deeper connection off that because we shared some of the same reasons of being more connected and being more vulnerable and trying to just do more in 2016.
Beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. Yes, ma'am.
I found that Angela was a lot more open, and she elaborated a lot more than she did when I initially asked the question, how are you doing?
And how did you react to her openness?
I feel like she's a genuine person. She's probably somebody I would probably be friends with if I didn't know if I was out.
Yeah, beautiful. Yes, sir, in the back.
We were just sharing in terms of how are we being as it relates to the reception last night, and particularly as it relates to the panel, how dynamic it was. And so for those who missed it, it was a phenomenal four-man panel that just totally captivated everyone who was here last night. So it was a treat.
Beautiful. And how was it to reflect upon that experience together?
We automatically connected just based upon that.
Beautiful. Thank you. In the back, sir?
In our group, I experienced more engagement because I think we were intentional. We were purposeful. And so I found myself much more of an active listener, and that engagement came through that. So I enjoyed that.
Beautiful. Thank you. And I know we have a number of other people who would like to contribute. We're going to move forward, but I hope that you will continue to express your reactions to this with each other, maybe through lunch. The next part of this program is the question, who are you? So how are you being is a nice introduction to starting to express how you show up in the world. Your energy, where your interests lie, where your motivations lie. But at the end of the day, if we're going to get to this intimacy, this experience, we also have to reveal and be able to see who we are. What do we stand for in the world? What are the ways, the labels in which sometimes we adopt or show up? And so we're going to do an exercise where I'm actually going to ask you to partner with somebody different. So you may need to catch eyes now so you can kind of let go of that anxiety of who's going to say yes to me? Am I worthy of this exercise, right? I feel that every damn time. And here's what I'm going to ask of you as we go into this exercise. The person who is asking the question, that's your sole responsibility, to ask that question. And you're probably going to ask it 5, 6, 7 times. Maybe more, maybe less. That's your sole responsibility to ask that question and then hold space for the other person to explore and look inward and find what bubbles to the surface. If you are the person responding to that question, you have a couple of choices. You can make this really easy on yourself. I'm a wife, I'm a husband, I'm a child, I'm a financial planner. Right? There's things that are easy. And is that who you are? Some of it absolutely is. But I also encourage you to consider what might it be to share, I'm a white guy who let down himself in not taking better care of a black woman on an airplane. You don't have the whole story, but if I was just to share that, if I shared with you that I cheated on my college girlfriend, and I had the opportunity to cheat on my wife last year and didn't take it and was so proud of who I am. I need to take you guys everywhere with me. Right? Like, what's the difference between sharing that or telling you that I run a company? Or I have X number of staff members or this or that. Like, I can try to impress you, or I can tell you the shit that's like embarrassing, humiliating, disturbing, without any backstory, right? You don't hear the backstory of who I've been or who I am. Like, just heard that little tidbit. So I encourage you to breathe into this exercise as we're doing it and take a moment to share the things that make you shake a little. And it's your decision to what degree you push into your discomfort. But I think, as you have seen by example, when I share the things that you could certainly all judge me for, you're not. Or maybe some of you are, which is also okay, but for the most part, there's enthusiasm, there's connection through that. So why don't we do a quick demonstration, just because there's a couple moving parts to this. So who would have fun volunteering and coming up here and doing this with me one quick round? You had your hand up first in the back. Come on down. I was a contestant on The Price is Right, by the way. I won a TV and I did not win the Showcase Showdown. But I did get to come on down. It was very exciting. I did spin the wheel. What's that?
Like 75 cents, 65.
I don't remember my number. I remember I fell on the ground when I lost. I'm rather expressive. Hi, what's your name?
My name is Jakenia Marie.
Jakini?
Yeah, Kenia.
Kenia.
Yeah, Kenia with a Y.
Kenia. Kenia, thank you. Welcome. Thank you for coming up and being willing to participate. Your hair is gorgeous.
Thank you.
Look at you.
Thank you.
Yes, okay, so I'm just going to ask this question,
Yes.
okay? And I encourage you to look inward and just share whatever bubbles to the surface. Who are you?
I am a mother of a beautiful 22-year-old son and a beautiful 2-year-old granddaughter.
Who are you?
I am a woman who loves helping women entrepreneurs start their business.
Sorry, I get vocal. Who are you?
I am an overcomer, someone who used to be a drug trafficker, almost lost my life, overcame it, rededicated my life to the Lord, and now I'm an ordained minister, and I help individuals overcome as well.
One more. Who are you?
I am a woman who lives life on purpose.
It was beautiful. Thank you. Would you have shared any of that at this conference, like casually in a first-time meeting? Yeah, thank you so much for your courage. That was gorgeous. Gorgeous. How many people felt like they got to see her? You just became visible in a community of people. That's fantastic. Okay, we're going to do this exercise. We're going to have about 2 minutes each. Okay, so let's get with our partners. I'll let you know when to switch. If you struggle with this exercise, allow yourself to express, I'm someone who struggles with this exercise. Be wherever you are with yourself. Don't be judgmental. Let it be what it is. Go ahead. We're bringing our attention back to the front of the room. If you can hear my voice, please wave your hand. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that the structure of 50 minutes for connection is sometimes challenging, and that you guys are now in the midst of relationship, and sometimes that's challenging to break. I really urge you to consider to explore if you've had some kind of relationship that's really exciting and feels worth continuing. Maybe that's someone you go to lunch with, or use the app to set a time where you guys can meet in the future. We have 10 more minutes, so and I want to be respectful of your time to get to your next engagement. I'd like for you guys to now take another minute. Actually, before we do that, real quick, we'll take 4 people. 2 people, can you share with me what was the experience of holding space for another person to explore in that exercise? Yes, ma'am.
When you don't have the pressure of piping in and adding your own bio, then you can actually finally listen to what another person has to say as well.
Thank you. That's beautiful. Yes, sir.
I really enjoyed not having to think about what I got to say and just really take the time and hearing what she has to say and knowing.
Taking the pressure off. One more.
It felt sort of sacred, like you were honoring them in a way, and you saw them in a way that you wouldn't if you just asked them their name. It was really amazing.
Beautiful. Thank you. On the converse of that, what was it like to share and have someone hold that space for you and allow you to explore maybe words that you haven't strung together before, maybe sharing aspects of who you are that you haven't expressed before, or maybe something that popped out of your mouth that kind of confounded you, like, I didn't even realize that's something that I was, or I've been hiding that or keeping that away. Who'd like to share? Yes, in the back, sir.
I would say that it gives you permission to own your truth.
Yes, ma'am.
I found out something that I learned through an experience that I didn't realize I learned until she just asked me, and I was like, oh, that's what I learned from losing all of that.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. One more. Yes, ma'am.
I felt like I was violating the code. That is not how this is supposed to work. This is not right. Yes. I felt like I was violating the social code.
So let me ask you, in violating that code, what was the judgment placed on that? Was that a I'm doing something naughty kind of fun, or was that this is not supposed to happen and I need to get the hell out of this room? And I give you permission to need to get the hell out. It's okay.
Yeah, I was like, this is not supposed to happen. And I kept asking him, no, really, let me be the questioner. And he's like, no, I want to know. So, yeah, I felt like this should not be happening. Right, like.
Thank you for sharing that. I really appreciate you sharing that. That's phenomenal. We're all allowed to have our own reaction to this kind of space and how we're all triggered. So let's take a minute and a half to discuss with that partner what would be possible if we took this level of connection into the next day and a half that we are spending at this conference together. What if we actively listened more? What if we held space for ourselves and others more? How might that impact the experience of being here together before we leave? Let's just take a minute and a half, and we'll do a little sharing on that, and then we'll move on. Let's have a couple of responses. What did you share with one another about what would be possible if you took this energy into the full space at the Marriott over the next 2 days? Yes, sir?
So I need to leave my phone in the car. Don't even bring it.
I love that. Let me give someone else in the room. I love you to pieces. Who else in the back? Yes, ma'am, in the back.
I had the opportunity to speak with someone I knew only in a professional capacity. And I came to this forum as a community partner with both organizations. And hearing her story and feedback gave me the courage and vulnerability to say what I wanted to say to them.
Beautiful. Thank you. Woman next to you also had her hand up. Yes.
I think that it'll open up more opportunities to become more invested in the people that you meet, where it's more than just the 5-minute elevator speech. You have a deeper connection with that person, a deeper investment in that person. So it helps you to build stronger bonds and even business venture, business partnerships, or life partnerships as friends.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. For the sake of time, we're going to move on. But I think it's important to acknowledge, if you had a really profound connection with the person next to you, honoring and recognizing, if you sat next to anyone in this room, that was possible. Everyone at this conference, you could care for the way that maybe you just started caring for this other person that you might not have known before or only knew professionally. What would the world look like if we went into every conversation, every engagement, every dialogue with the opportunity of how can we find our connection? How can we find our commonality? How can we hold space for and love one another? So I want you to, this is internal. Let's close our eyes for a second. Kind of sit up again, get ourselves readjusted. Why don't we take a nice breath as a community again. Deep inhale in. Exhale out. I want you to think of a commitment you'd like to make to yourself as you leave this space. Whatever that may come to you, whether it's leaving your phone in the car or committing to remaining open-hearted, committing to viewing everyone that you come across as someone you could care about. Think about that commitment. You might put your hand over your heart and kind of make that commitment to yourself that you're going to live into that. Another deep breath. And we're going to let that out. And then when you're ready, you can open your eyes and bring yourself back to the room. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Corey Blake. I am the founder and president, CEO. We just promoted someone to president. I'm getting used to that. Founder and CEO of Roundtable Companies. We're a storytelling company. We help create connection in the world. If the way that you feel now is something that feels profound to you and you'd like to feel more connected to the people that you care about in your life, in your business, I invite you, come on up. You can, if you have to run, you can drop a business card on the stage and someone on my crew will get in touch with you. You can find me throughout the conference. You can hand me a card. If this feels good to you and you want more in your life, this is what we specialize in. We've been doing it for 10 years and I've been doing it for 20. I also encourage you to check out the Vulnerability Wall. Our company has put on the Vulnerability Wall. Sunny in the back of the room here. Wave your hand, Sunny. Sunny is our creative director, and we've been doing the Vulnerability Wall around the country. This is an opportunity for you to anonymously share some of the stuff you might be bringing into the space, and the artists then take it and beautifully depict it on the wall as a piece of art, so that you can take something that was previously holding you back, look at it in a new way, and invite everyone else to see each other and see yourselves in all of the humanity that's at this conference. Let's put it on the wall so we don't use it to create obstacles between us. I encourage you to visit the wall. My information is up here. If you'd like to get in touch with me, I invite you to do that. Ladies and gentlemen, today is a beautiful day. Go out and see it. Thank you.